The Family Feud taping had been running for 41 minutes when a production assistant crossed the stage floor at a pace that veterans of live television immediately recognize as wrong. She was not running, because running on a live set creates panic, but she was moving the way people move when running is exactly what they want to do. She reached Steve Harvey at the podium, handed him a folded white note, and stepped back. Steve Harvey opened the note. He read 4 lines. His face went pale. He lowered the note and looked up at the Delacroix family standing across the stage. A grandmother named Felice, her adult daughter, Nicole, Nicole's husband, Jerome, their teenage son, Marcus, and Nicole's brother, Antoine. And he said, in a voice that had left the television entirely, "I need to stop the show." He did not explain. He walked toward Felice. The audience watched a man who had done this job for 23 years approach a 71-year-old woman with the specific quality of movement that people use when they are carrying something heavy toward someone who does not yet know what's coming. It was a Thursday in November, taping day at Imageworks Studios in Atlanta. The Delacroix family had come from New Orleans, 6 hours in a car that smelled like beignets because Felice had packed a box from her neighborhood bakery for the drive, and because you do not travel without food when you are Felice Delacroix. She was 71, small, church-going, with the kind of posture that announces itself before you do. She had raised 3 children alone after her husband's death in 1997, had cleaned office buildings for 14 years, had put all 3 children through college on a combination of financial aid, Pell Grants, and an annual budget she maintained in a notebook, with the specific precision of someone who understands that $40 in the wrong column is a catastrophe. She was proud, not the performative kind, the quiet, structural kind that comes from having chosen, on a specific night in 1997 after the funeral, to survive. The note Steve Harvey had been handed concerned Felice's youngest son, Robert, who was not at the taping. Who had not been at the taping because, 5 days earlier, he had been admitted to the ICU at Tulane Medical Center with a hemorrhagic stroke. He was 41 years old. He was the child who had graduated from law school. He was the one Felice had secretly gone into debt to help finish his final semester, borrowing $14,000 from a finance company at 18% interest, a debt she was still paying off 6 years later with $340 monthly payments she listed in her notebook under the column she had labeled Robert. Worth it. He had a wife named Dana and a 5-year-old daughter named Amara who had been told that Daddy was sick and needed the doctors to help him. The family had debated whether to still come to the taping. Nicole had said they should cancel. Antoine had agreed. Jerome had stayed quiet. Felice had said, "Robert would want us to go." She had said it with the voice she used when things were decided. They had come. And that wasn't even the part that made Steve Harvey stop the show. The note also said something else. Robert Delacroix had been watching the taping from his hospital bed. His wife Dana had set up a tablet on the rolling table beside him, propped against his water pitcher, streaming the live feed that the show's production team provided to family members who couldn't attend in person. He had been watching the whole time. He had seen his mother answer question number 4 with a speed and precision that had made his wife laugh out loud in the hospital room. He had apparently told Dana he was going to be fine as long as Felice kept playing because he'd bet his recovery on the family not getting fewer than 400 points. Dana had written all of this in the message she texted to the production assistant. She had also written that Robert had asked, twice, if Steve Harvey could say hello to his mother. Steve Harvey reached Felice. He stood in front of her and held the note loosely at his side and said, "Ma'am, I need to tell you something, and I need to tell you with the show stopped, because this is more important than the show." The audience, which had been murmuring since the production assistant crossed the floor, went completely silent. 300 people held still. Steve Harvey told Felice what the note said. He told her about Robert in the hospital. He told her that Robert had been watching. He told her about the tablet propped against the water pitcher, the live feed, Dana laughing at question 4. He told her about the bet Robert had made about 400 points. Felice Delacroix made no sound. She pressed both hands flat against her chest, over her heart, and she looked up at the ceiling in the specific way that people look up when they are talking to God and do not care who sees it. She said nothing for a very long time. Then she said, in a voice designed to carry, "Robert, baby, we got over 400, and you are going to be fine." There was not a dry eye in the building, not in the audience, not in the crew, not on Steve Harvey's face. He pressed his handkerchief to his eyes. He turned away from the camera for a moment. He turned back. He was not composed, and he had decided not to pretend to be. "Cut the cameras," he said, and a producer started to comply, and Steve said, "No, leave them on. I want people to see this." He pulled out his phone. On a live taping floor, in front of the full studio audience, Steve Harvey called the nurses' station at Tulane Medical Center's IQ unit. He asked to be connected to room 4112. A nurse answered. Steve said, "My name is Steve Harvey. I'm calling from the Family Feud set in Atlanta because your patient Robert Delacroix has a mother standing in front of me who needs to talk to her son right now." There was a pause, a longer pause, and then a sound that started as static and became, unmistakably, a voice. "Robert Delacroix, 41 years old, hemorrhagic stroke, day 5 of the IQ," said Mama. Felice Delacroix pressed Steve Harvey's phone to her ear with both hands. The audience did not applaud. They did not move. They sat in complete silence, while a 71-year-old woman spoke to her son in the hospital, and nobody in that room pretended they were watching a game show anymore. The call lasted 11 minutes. At the end, Felice handed the phone back to Steve and said, "He says tell you thank you." Steve said, into the phone, "Robert, your mother just played the most impressive Family Feud I've seen in 23 seasons. You need to get out of that hospital so you can watch the episode." A pause. Then Robert's voice, rougher than it should have been, said, "Tell her we got over 400. Steve said, "You got 473. A sound came through the phone that was somewhere between laughing and crying. Donna's voice appeared briefly behind Robert saying something nobody in the studio could hear. Steve said, "Get better, son." He was not done. Steve Harvey announced a $50,000 medical fund, contributed personally, to assist the Delacroix family with Robert's care and rehabilitation costs. He called his financial manager and set the transfer in motion from the stage. He announced that the Delacroix family would receive the full day's prize, and that the competing family, the Nyens from Houston, who had stood at their podium in complete stillness through all of it, would also receive the full prize. Lan Nyen, the matriarch, crossed the stage and took Felice's hand without saying a word. Felice held on. The episode aired 8 weeks later. The 11-minute phone call was condensed to 4 minutes for broadcast, but the unedited version was released on the show's official YouTube channel the same day and reached 220 million views in 12 days. The hashtag #RobertWatching from his room was used in 22 languages. The clip was shared more than any single clip in Family Feud's 45-year history up to that point. Robert Delacroix was discharged from the ICU 14 days after the taping. He required 4 months of rehabilitation for partial left-side weakness. By month 3, he was walking with a cane. By month 6, he had returned to his law practice part-time. He watched the episode from his living room couch with Dana and Amara, who was 5, watched the moment Steve Harvey called the hospital and then looked at her father and said, "Daddy, is that you on the phone?" Robert said, "That's Grandma talking to me when I was sick." Amara thought about it. She said, "Were you scared?" Robert said, "A little." She said, "I would have talked to you too." 3 months after discharge, Robert Delacroix returned to New Orleans with Dana and Amara and took his mother to Sunday dinner at the bakery that made the beignets. He paid. He watched his mother eat a beignet with the specific satisfaction of a woman who has paid $340 a month for 6 years without complaint and deserved every good thing this world had available. He said nothing about the debt. Felice had stopped listing it in her notebook 2 weeks after the taping. She had drawn a line through it with blue pen. Below it, she had written 3 words in the margin: "Worth it." Always, a year after the taping, Felice Delacroix was invited to speak at Tulane Medical Center's annual donor recognition event. She did not speak about the taping. She spoke about what it meant to not be alone in a hard moment. She spoke for 7 minutes and received a standing ovation that went on so long the moderator had to gently step in. Steve Harvey said in a later interview that the 11 minutes of that phone call were the most important 11 minutes he had spent on that stage. "Television teaches you to feel silence," he said. "That day, I learned to leave it alone." If this story about a mother, her son, and one phone call that changed a hospital room moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to know that the people who love you are still watching, even when you don't know it. Have you ever received a call that changed everything? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more moments that prove love finds a way.